Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving into some truly unsettling stories, cases that stick with you. We're talking about unsolved mysteries. We'll go through the details, look at the facts we have, and try to understand, well, what exactly happened and why are there still so many unanswered questions? Each one is like falling down a rabbit hole, Every piece of information seems to just open up more doors, more questions. So our goal here is to explore these tangled narratives, get the key facts straight, and maybe try to piece together the enduring puzzle around them. Let's start with one that really hit a community hard. We begin with the disappearance of Johnny Gosch, September 5th, 1982. Johnny was 12 years old, living in West Des Moines, Iowa. He usually woke his dad up early to help with his paper route, but on this particular morning, he just snuck out, took the family dog, Gretchen, a miniature dachshund. He was seen getting his newspapers. That's the last time anyone can definitively say they saw him. Sometime between 6 and 7 a.m., delivering those papers, Johnny vanished. But just before that, there was this sighting. Really suspicious. Two different neighbors saw Johnny talking to a man, an unknown man in a blue two-tone Ford Fairmont, Nebraska plates. They couldn't hear anything, but they both said later, it felt wrong, something didn't feel right. They said Johnny looked spooked. A woman from actually saw the car follow Johnny as he rode his bike towards home.
Yeah, and that sighting really stuck with them. One of those neighbors, they even tried hypnosis later, trying so hard to remember that license plate. They said, I keep hoping I'll wake up in the middle of the night and see that number as distinctly as night and day, but that hasn't happened. Just couldn't pull it out. It's heartbreaking.
So when Johnny's parents got a call saying the paper hadn't arrived, his dad went looking. And what he found was just terrifying. Johnny's little wagon full of newspapers just abandoned, 2 blocks from home. And Gretchen, the dog, was right there on the street, alone. Johnny was gone. He called the police right away, obviously fearing the worst. And this is pretty frustrating to hear now, the police response was slow. They had this 72-hour missing person policy back then. You had to be gone 3 days before they really classified it. Thankfully, that's gone now.
Right. So initially they leaned towards runaway, which everyone who knew Johnny, his family, his friends, had said absolutely not him. Eventually, investigators did conclude he must have been taken, abducted.
Then things got even stranger. About 2 months later, there's a report from Oklahoma. Someone claims they saw a young boy screaming, "I'm Johnny Gosch, help!" before being dragged off by 2 men. Johnny's mother, Noreen, she heard the description and she was convinced. She believed it was her son. But after that, nothing. Years went by, no new leads, no solid evidence, like he just disappeared into thin air. His parents, understandably, couldn't just wait. They hired private investigators. They got his face on milk cartons, which was a big thing then.
A huge campaign, yeah. But sadly, it didn't bring in any real information.
And adding to the fear, just 2 years after Johnny vanished, another paperboy from the same neighborhood also went missing. You have to wonder.
It definitely made people draw connections, understandably so.
But maybe the most baffling and definitely the most controversial part of this whole story comes much later, almost 15 years later, March 1997. Noreen, Johnny's mom, says she was woken up, 2:00 in the morning, loud knock on the door. She looks through the peephole, sees 2 figures, kind of blurry, and a voice says, "Mom, it's me, Johnny, can I come in?" She claims it was Johnny, now 27 years old. She said he proved it was him, showed her a unique birthmark he had on his chest. But he wasn't alone. There was another man with him, unidentified.
And the conversation they had, according to Noreen, it was intense. She said, we talked about an hour or an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But Johnny seemed constrained. He'd apparently look over at the other guy, almost like asking for permission before speaking. He wouldn't say where he was living or where he was going next. He told her he'd been trafficked, that he was basically in hiding, still in danger, couldn't stay. They left before the sun came up, and she never saw him again.
So the massive question hanging over this is, did that really happen? Was that a genuine, albeit incredibly risky reunion? Or was it some kind of unbelievably cruel hoax, someone messing with a grieving mother?
It's incredibly hard to know, but the FBI did take her account seriously enough to create a sketch based on her description of the adult Johnny.
Noreen continued to fight for answers. In 2000, she published a book, Why Johnny Can't Come Home, about her experiences, including that alleged visit. Then in 2006, things take another dark turn. A set of really disturbing photos show up on her doorstep. One showed 3 boys she didn't know, bound and gagged, but Another photo appeared to show a young boy, gagged, tied up, who looked disturbingly like Johnny. He had what looked like a brand on his shoulder. Noreen put these photos online, hoping someone, somewhere, would recognize something. Just 12 days after she posted them, an anonymous letter arrives at the Des Moines police. The letter claimed that first photo, the one with the 3 unknown boys, was actually a fake. Said it showed kids playing some kind of escape game in Tampa, Florida.
way back in like 1979 or 80. He even mentioned a specific investigator, Detective Zalva.
And here's the thing. Detective Zalva was real. He actually confirmed, yes, he had investigated an incident like that. And the photo of the 3 boys was from that playful scenario. It was kids messing around. But crucially, he said the other photo, the one that looked like Johnny, that was completely new, unidentified. No one has ever proven who that boy is. Noreen still firmly believes it's Johnny.
More photos kept arriving over the years. Some they're proven fakes, like stills from horror movies. Others remain mysteries. Noreen kept posting them, just hoping for a breakthrough. So where does that leave the Johnny Gosch case? Decades later, you've got theories all over the place. Trafficking rings, a lone predator. Was that late night visit real? Is he alive? Dead?
Nobody knows for sure. It's just layers upon layers of mystery and pain, and it really shows how devastating these disappearances are, especially when the initial response, wasn't what it should have been. Families are left doing the detective work themselves.
Yeah, just unimaginable anguish. Okay, from the uncertainty of a missing person, let's shift to a case where a body was found. But that discovery only seemed to create more questions. This is truly bizarre. We're talking about the body in the drag queen's closet. This centers around Dorian Corey. Dorian was a well-known figure in Harlem's drag ball scene, a trans woman, a fashion designer. You might know her from the documentary Paris is Burning.
A legendary figure, really.
Dorian passed away in 1993. She was 56. But the real mystery starts 2 months after her death. Her friend, Lois Taylor, who was also acting as her caretaker, was clearing out Dorian's apartment with a couple of other friends. They were looking for Halloween costumes in this big closet. And they find this large green plaid garment bag on the floor. It was incredibly heavy, way too heavy. Lois eventually cut it open, and inside they found a partially mummified corpse, curled up, fetal position, bullet hole in the head.
Oh, wow. The smell apparently was immediate and overwhelming, just awful. They called the authorities right away, of course.
Exactly. So investigators arrive, and the state of the body immediately tells them a few things. It was wrapped in layers, fake leather, plastic bags. And as they unwrapped it, these old pull tabs fell out from like 1960s beer cans, the flip-top kind.
Yeah, those date it pretty specifically.
Right. The skin was discolored, yellow and purple. Ears were basically just cartilage. It's a person that had been dead a long time. So the immediate questions are, who is this? How long have they been dead? And the big one, why were they in Dorian Corey's closet?
Identifying him was tricky because the fingers were so brittle. The coroners had to use a special chemical solution to rehydrate them enough to get fingerprints. And they got a match. Robert Bobby Worley. He had a pretty extensive criminal record, and crucially hadn't been seen since the mid to late 1960s. So that, plus the beer tabs, confirmed it. He'd likely been dead, hidden in that closet for about 20 years.
20 years. Which just deepens the mystery. Why was Bobby Worley there? Did Dorian kill him? Because everyone who knew Dorian described her as, calm, thoughtful, peaceful even. It just didn't seem to fit.
Exactly, that's the core puzzle.
So naturally, theories started flying around. What could explain this? One idea centers on a potentially abusive relationship. Bobby Worley had apparently told his brother he was involved with a woman named Dorian, and that it was physically abusive.
Right. And given Worley's own history of aggression, maybe it was self-defense. Or perhaps revenge. That's one possibility.
Another theory comes from this supposed note. It's never been officially confirmed by police, but rumor has it a note was found pinned to the body. Allegedly in Dorian's handwriting, saying something like, "This poor man broke into my home and was trying to rob me."
And since Worley did have a record, maybe it was self-defense during a break-in. It fits that narrative.
Then there's a third possibility, maybe even stranger, that Dorian was actually covering for someone else. See, Dorian moved apartments in 1988, and it seems really unlikely she dragged a 20-year-old decomposing body with her to a new place.
That's a very good point. It's physically difficult to imagine.
So this theory suggests the body might have already been in that closet when Dorian moved in. Maybe she knew the previous tenant, maybe she moved there specifically to protect them, or just protect the secret. But whichever theory you lean towards, the massive unanswered question is, why keep the body for 2 decades? Why not dispose of it?
Well, Detective Figueroa, who worked the case, had an interesting take on that. He sort of described the psychology. He said, people just wrap a body in whatever's available. It's just spontaneous. Then you put it in a suitcase. Then you put it in the closet. Then you just look at it periodically and wish it would go away. He also suggested Dorian probably used a lot of baking soda over the years to try and manage the odor.
Wow, just wishing it would go away for 20 years.
And you also have to consider Dorian's context, a black trans woman in Harlem back in the 60s or 70s living in a poor neighborhood. If she had killed him in self-defense, would she have expected any sympathy from the police back then? Probably not. Fear could have been a huge factor.
That makes sense. And getting rid of a body in New York City,
Yeah.
not exactly easy without attracting attention.
Almost impossible, really.
So this incredibly macabre discovery, it just remains unsolved. We don't know if Dorian was a killer, a victim of circumstance, or a protector.
Yeah.
The truth died with her.
It's a case that really highlights how vulnerability, identity, and fear can intersect in ways that lead to these almost unbelievable situations. What secrets do people keep?
Yeah, truly unsettling. Okay, our next story is another one that feels like something out of a nightmare. A campfire story got horribly real. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. This happened back in 1977, and it's still one of Tulsa's most haunting cold cases. Camp Scott, Oklahoma, is supposed to be celebrating its 50th anniversary. Beautiful place, 410 acres, woods, a creek. Perfect for Girl Scouts.
Sounds idyllic.
Totally. But before the main camp session even started, there was this incredibly ominous warning. During a counselor training session just before the girls arrived, one counselor found an empty box of donuts. Inside, there was a handwritten note. And the note said explicitly 3 campers were going to be murdered.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
chilling. What did they do?
She took it straight to her supervisors. But they dismissed it. Thought it was just a sick joke, a prank. Tragically, they didn't take it seriously,
Wow, hindsight is brutal there.
isn't it? So Sunday, June 12th, the Girl Scouts arrive. Everyone's excited, even though it was kind of rainy, misty weather. They get assigned to their tents, usually 4 to 6 girls per tent. They have their evening activities, telling ghost stories. Typical camp stuff. Then a big thunderstorm rolls in, forces everyone back to their tents early. Now the unit called Kiowa had an extra tent, tent 8, and it was positioned a bit differently from the others, kind of further back, closer to the tree line.
Making it harder to see, especially in a storm.
Exactly. With the heavy rain and the darkness, the counselors couldn't really see tent 8 clearly from their own quarters. Fast forward to 6 a.m. the next morning, Monday, June 13th. A counselor gets up early to go take a shower. She's walking down the path to the bathhouse, and she sees something in the trail. 3 sleeping bags. Just lying there, piled up. She unzips the top one, sees what's inside, and just runs screaming back to alert everyone else. They called the authorities immediately.
I can't even imagine. What did they find?
It was the 3 girls from 10-8. Lori Lee Farmer, who was 8.
Yeah.
Michelle Heather Goose, she was 9. And Doris Denise Miller, age 10. They'd all been horrifically beaten to death. The weapon, a flashlight, was found right there at the scene. Other terrible things had happened too.
So the note, it was horrifyingly accurate. 3 campers.
Precisely. The camp was evacuated instantly. Police brought in sniffer dogs, started collecting evidence. What they found included a man's footprint, size 9.5, in blood, inside the tent. They also found a single fingerprint on the lens of the flashlight. An unknown print.
Anything else?
Yeah. A local farmer reported hearing unusual traffic on a remote road near the camp. Between his property and the camp boundary, around 2.3 or 3.0 that morning.
Yeah.
Said it was quite a bit of traffic for that time. Investigators pretty quickly zeroed in on a suspect, Gene Leroy Hart. He had a, let's say, sordid reputation locally. He was also an escapee from prison at the time. And critically, his family home was only about a mile from Camp Scott.
Proximity alone makes him a person of interest, definitely.
They found him hiding out later that year at the house of a Cherokee medicine man. The local sheriff was absolutely convinced Hart was the guy. Said he was 1,000% certain.
1,000% certain. Okay. But did the evidence actually point to him?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. As the investigation went on and during the trial, some major inconsistencies popped up.
Like what? For starters, the shoe sizes. That bloody footprint was a size 9.5. Gene Leroy Hart didn't wear a size 9.5.
Okay, that's a big one.
Huge. Also, the fingerprint on the flashlight. Not his. And he apparently had a pretty solid alibi for the time of the murders. Later on, DNA testing was done on some evidence. The results gave only a 1 in 7,700 chance that it could have been Hart, which is not strong at all for linking someone.
So, despite the sheriff's certainty, there were serious doubts. Accusations started flying that maybe he was being framed.
Understandable, given those discrepancies.
The jury thought so too. Hart was acquitted of the murders. But, and this is wild because he was an escapee, they sent him back to prison anyway, to serve out the rest of his previous sentence, which was 308 years.
308 years? Good grief.
He had 305 years left to serve. He didn't serve much of it, though. He died just 2 years later in 1979. had a heart attack while lifting weights in the prison yard.
Wow. So he died acquitted but still in prison.
Exactly. And the murders, still unsolved. Over 40 years later, investigators don't know if it was one killer or more. There's just never been that definitive piece of evidence, that smoking gun to close the case.
It's just tragic. And that quote you mentioned earlier from Lori's childhood friend years later really captures it. She said, "I still believe the murders will be solved. Somewhere out there, someone knows something. I hope they realize it is time they came forward." That lingering hope, but also that frustration.
Absolutely. And just as a side note, the families of two of the girls did sue the Girl Scouts organization for negligence, arguing they ignored that warning note.
Did they win?
No. The jury sided with the camp 9 votes to 3.
So no accountability there either. This case really shows how failing to act on a warning, combined with confusing evidence later, can just leave this gaping wound in a community. Decades of uncertainty.
A truly horrifying story. Okay, for our final mystery tonight, we're heading across the world to New Zealand. This is a case that has fiercely divided that country for well over 2 decades now. The Bain family murders. It starts on June 20th, 1994, just after 7 a.m. A frantic call comes into 111, New Zealand's emergency number. The caller is a young man, 22-year-old David Bain, and he's screaming, "They're all dead! They're all dead!"
No.
Police rush to the address, 65 Every Street in Dunedin, and the scene is devastating. 5 members of the Bain family are dead. The father, Robin, 58, mother, Margaret, 50, 2 daughters, Arawa, 19, and Lanny at 18, and the youngest son, Stephen, just 14.
The whole family, except David.
Exactly. David was the only survivor. All 5 victims have been shot, and there were signs of a violent struggle, particularly involving Stephen, the teenage son. They found green fibers, like from a sweater, under his fingernails. Plus, this incredibly chilling message typed on the family computer. "Sorry, you were the only one who deserved to stay."
Wow. Typed message. So immediately the question is, who wrote that and who did the killing?
David told police his version of events. He said he'd just gotten home from his morning paper route. Came inside, didn't turn on lights, washed the newspaper ink off his hands. Then he noticed bullets and the trigger lock from his own rifle lying on his bedroom floor. That made him run around the house, checking. That's when he found his mother dead, then one sister, who he said was still gurgling, then his father. Then he called 111.
Okay, so his rifle was involved.
His .22 rifle was the murder weapon, yes. Initially, the police actually suspected the father, Robin. Robin and Margaret were estranged. He wasn't even living in the house full-time, stayed in a caravan out in the garden on weekends.
Right, family tensions there.
So the theory was, maybe Robin snapped under the pressure, killed the family members he felt rejected by, but spared David, maybe because David had shown him some sympathy.
But did that theory hold up? Not really. When they looked closely at the crime scene evidence, the way Robin was found made it very difficult, maybe impossible, for him to have shot himself like that. And he didn't seem to have any enemies who'd do this. So if it wasn't Robin, attention quickly turned to David.
Yeah, investigators started looking harder at David. It seemed suspicious that he just happened to be out during the killings, that it was his rifle used, and that cryptic message on the computer, essentially exonerating him. Well, that looks suspicious too.
Very convenient, perhaps.
Exactly. So the prosecution developed their theory. David killed his mother, his brother Stephen, and his 2 sisters before he left for his paper route. Then, they argued, he went on his route, came back, and waited. Maybe 25 minutes or so. Waited for his father, Robin, to come inside from the caravan. Then he shot his father. After that, they alleged, he typed the message on the computer to frame Robin, maybe hoping to inherit everything.
And how did they connect that to the evidence? The fibers, the time gap. Well, the green fibers under Stephen's fingernails. David had apparently been wearing a green sweater that morning, a sweater he later put in the washing machine after getting home. So that seemed to explain the struggle. That 25-minute gap between David saying he got home and when he actually called 111, the prosecution said that was him either waiting for his father or using the time to stage the scene, wash clothes, cover his tracks.
It was enough for charges. David was charged with 5 counts of homicide. The trial lasted 3 weeks, became the most expensive trial in New Zealand's history at that point, and the verdict, guilty. David Bain was sentenced to life in prison.
Case closed, it seemed.
For a while, yes. But then things took a completely unexpected turn. Enter Joe Karam. Karam was a famous former rugby player in all black, and he was also distantly related to the Bains. He got interested in the case, read about it, and just felt something was wrong. Deeply wrong.
He didn't believe David did it.
Not at all. He launched his own investigation, wrote 4 books arguing David's innocence, visited David in prison hundreds of times, like over 200 visits. And because he was such a high-profile figure, he managed to really publicize the doubts, push for the case to be reopened.
And did it work? It did, remarkably. His campaigning, combined with new analysis of evidence that wasn't available or properly presented at the first trial, led to a retrial in 2009. And this time, David Bain was found not guilty, innocent.
After serving 13 years in prison. Unbelievable.
He didn't get formal compensation for the wrongful conviction, but the government did give him a substantial payment, over $900,000 NZD, which is around $600,000 US, mainly to cover his massive legal costs over the years.
After getting out, life wasn't easy. He struggled to find work. But he did get married in 2012 and actually changed his name to William Davies, taking his wife's last name, trying to move on. So David's innocent. But that just reopens the original question: if David didn't kill his family, who did? Was it Robin after all? And New Zealand is still completely split on this. It's a huge debate there.
Absolutely. Even after the acquittal, there's a large group of people who still firmly believe David is guilty, and they point to things that still seem to them suspicious. Like, why wasn't any of Robin's blood spatter found on the rifle if it was pressed right against his head when he was shot? Although his fingerprints were found on the barrel, maybe like he was trying to push it away.
Okay, that's confusing.
It is. And why would Robin type that message if he was supposedly wearing gloves, which the prosecution suggested David wore? Then there's David's statement about his sister gurgling. Medical experts say that happens almost immediately after a fatal injury, not, 20 or 30 minutes later when David claimed he found her.
Right, the timing seems off there.
And that 25-minute delay before calling 111, David's explanation was just shock. Many people still don't buy that, thinking it points to him staging the scene.
So arguments on both sides still.
Definitely. But then, supporting David's innocence, some new evidence has actually come out more recently. Just last year, new witnesses came forward, people who claim they actually saw David outside the house, stumbling around looking dazed, shortly after he would have returned from his paper route, which kind of fits his timeline of finding the bodies and being in shock.
Wow. So even now, new details are emerging. This case really is, as we said, a rabbit hole. For New Zealanders especially, every new bit of information just fuels the debate all over again. It never seems to rest. So looking back at all these stories today, Johnny Gosch, Dorian Corey, the Girl Scouts, the Bains, they really drive home how unsettling unsolved mysteries are. You follow the facts, but they just seem to lead to more questions, more uncertainty. It really makes you think about, the complexities of people, the limits of what we can ever truly know through investigation, and that deep human need for answers, for closure.
Absolutely. And maybe the lingering question these cases leave us with is, what does justice even mean when the fundamental truth of what happened might be lost forever? What part of these stories do you find the most disturbing? And what does that tell us about the kinds of mysteries that continue to haunt us?
A powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us as we explored these enduring enigmas. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then.